Hi, I just want to take a moment to talk to you about the chronic epidemic of simping we are seeing in our current climate of political economy. Now, if you're not familiar with simping, basically it's men, and when I say men, I generally mean cishet assigned male at birth men who make their entire personality how they are insecure about their masculinity. And when I say masculinity, I am talking about hegemonic masculinity, which is a masculinity that is inherently oppressive, that defines itself in terms of how it is superior to the feminine and how women are inferior. It is deeply restrictive, it is toxic both to men and anyone who doesn't identify as male. It is also very homophobic and transphobic. It is generally hierarchical and bad, basically, for men and everybody else. But it does grant privileges to the men that uphold it. And where the term comes from is severely insecure masculinity personality. Now, I don't say personality disorder because I'm not a psychologist, but I think we can all agree, at least, that this is a thing. The far right has been working overtime with pay to recruit lonely, economically and psychologically depressed, isolated men to their reactionary viewpoints, as these men are uniquely vulnerable to being manipulated into doing what all tyrants need to do to maintain power: find a scapegoat. In this case, anyone who questions or violates gender and sexual norms that enforce gendered hierarchy with cishet white men at the top. Now, like all reactionaries, these viewpoints are incredibly hypocritical. So when I outline what a simp actually is, you're going to notice this. And I just want to make clear I am doing my best to make clear absolutely muddled and self-contradictory ideology, if you could even call it that. Now, at its core, of course, it is deeply insecure. It is incredibly misogynist, but it's also very misandrist. It is anti-feminist, and it is generally far right. Now, there are anti-feminists on the left, but there generally aren't simps, or at least what I would call simps, on the left. And every problem in their life and every problem in the world is something that they're going to blame women and feminism for. They're almost entirely single. If they are in a relationship, it's generally not very happy, as they're obviously not going to be able to form a secure relationship with someone as an equal partner. But even if they are not single, they are very isolated. They may lie or exaggerate about their interactions with women just to uphold their status, as to be masculine is to be very sexually promiscuous and to easily command the attention and affection of women. But since women don't tend to want to fuck or talk to men that hate them, they don't generally succeed in this, and that is why they have to lie about it. Simps tend to espouse very traditional views on sex and relationships up until it limits them, because these views, of course, are all about limiting and shaming and controlling women, not living up to the same standards themselves. They do see women as valuable only in terms of how sexually available they are, and see relationships as transactional, although obviously these are highly unequal exchanges for women. But at the same time, they shame women for being too materialistic in these transactional relationships that they want, which to them is providing financially so long as they want to, and abandoning women when they aren't getting what they want, and women constantly being financially dependent on men. Simps tend to be very shallow as well, although they value only women who are conventionally beautiful, which is highly subject to what white beauty standards are. They also make sure that no woman ever lives up to the standard, and are clear on their view that women are simply too shallow. Simps are, if anything, deeply emotionally damaged, while simultaneously refusing to grapple with this. And I want to make that distinction clear because feminist men can and should grapple with how being socialized as a man under patriarchy is an act of emotional abuse. It's about being told that your emotions don't matter, that you shouldn't have them, that if you do have them, and especially if you show them, that you're weak, that you're a woman, that makes you lesser. But this is not what simps are doing. Simping is upholding that viewpoint of emotional abuse towards young boys and the emotionally damaged men that they become. Simps act as if emotions are a woman's thing, and they function only on cold logic. They mock men who actively care about their partner, well, of course, themselves being super straight, and hating, dehumanizing, infantilizing, objectifying, in every way oppressing women. Their complaints about women and sex usually boil down to their desire to be loved, not their desire for sex. And when they achieve sex, obviously it doesn't solve their problems. And they don't tend to achieve sex or love very much because they do everything in their power to make themselves unworthy of being cared for, because they treat their potential partners like objects, like dirt, like they're lesser, and few people are going to put up with that. At best, it's going to lead to a very toxic and abusive relationship. And they focus on their inability to achieve sexual partners, willing sexual partners, as if it's an act of oppression. And they pull this trick where they pretend like sex is a basic human need for survival. And ironically, they could actually make a much better argument for why emotional connection and just physical, like platonic physical touch is actually much more necessary to survival than sex is. But they can't do that because masculinity makes clear that that's a feminine thing, and women are the ones that care about emotional connection to people and snuggling and non-sexual touch. Men just want to fuck, and that's all they should ever care about. And if they want anything else, it makes them either gay or a woman. So they're kind of stuck in this weird limbo where they can't admit that they really just want connection with other people and they want to be loved. So they make it as if being denied sex is physically painful for them. Sex is a requirement for survival, and that is why men, I guess, are actually the most oppressed. And this is one reason that simping is not very common on the left, if it's even possible. They do tend to be far right or conservatives. Feminism is something that tends to be a lot more popular on the left, first of all. There are the self-contradictory leftist anti-feminists, but I wouldn't call them simps. But as far as the far left, anarchists are going to reject anti-feminism because patriarchy is a form of hierarchy. And Marxists are going to reject anti-feminism because Marxists, if they're going to look at things in terms of dialectical materialism, they have to look at the material conditions of our current society. And those material conditions are not ones that favor women. Men, by and large, control the wealth and the political power, and there's just no way around that. And Marx and Engels did talk about how our current industrial society does rely on the unpaid labor of women in terms of domestic labor, caretaking, and reproductive labor, and this being the foundation of exploitation of workers under industrialized capitalism. So it is hard to square being an anti-feminist, much less a simp, under a far left political viewpoint, especially when women currently make up the majority of working people as far as wage work in the United States. They also work the majority of hours. Women, if you count all labor, paid and unpaid, work significantly longer than men. So this is something that does trend with conservative values, and that is music to the ears of fascists, because these are highly vulnerable men. These are emotionally and socially insecure men that are very easily manipulated into radically antisocial views that can be used to keep tyrants in power. And if this is something you'd like to hear a little more about, I might do a series on all the different aspects of this. So if you're interested in that, please let me know, and I'll put out a couple more videos because I have a lot to say on this.